Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Tommy Prine, the son of the late songwriting genius John Prine, unveils his first album tomorrow night at City Winery in Washington, D.C. We spoke about his father's eternal Americana legacy and how it's inspired his own songwriting career. Hey, Tommy Prine, thanks so much for joining us on WTOP.
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Now we're talking because you're coming to the City Winery here in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday, April 19th. So I know, of course, everybody, we got to tell everybody you are the son of the legendary, the late John Prine. I guess I should start by saying I'm sorry for your loss. That was a really, I mean, it hit the world hard, the world of music, all of his fans hard at the beginning of the pandemic there. I think he passed of COVID there in the beginning in 2020. But so I just wanted to start by saying heartfelt condolences on that, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been an interesting and bumpy ride all at the same time. So, but yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we wanted to mention that because you basically, that sort of tees up the show here, because that, you're basically carrying on your father's iconic legacy, because you are about to release your very first album. I know I read that it's finished but not yet released, right? And so I guess if people come to City Winery, is this sort of like, I guess, like a sneak peek of what might be on the album?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll play a whole bunch of them that are on the record, and then I always joke with the crowds that I play with, because I tell them I'm going to play some old stuff and some new stuff, but it's all new to you guys. So, but I tend to play a lot of the ones that are on the record, and some stuff I've been writing recently that could be contenders for a record too. Who knows? But it's finished, and I love how it's sounding. But I just gotta, tie up some stuff on the back end to make sure everything's good to go for the launch. So
sure. When does it come out? Do we know yet?
I feel like I can confidently say the fall, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm working hard on it, trying to figure it out. There's a whole lot of more stuff than I ever thought that goes into an album after it's done to make sure that it can go out, like the first big, like, major goal I ever set for myself in life was to make an album. And then once I made it, I was like, all right, like, what now? Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff I got to figure out and, tie up all the loose ends. So it'll be out hopefully in the fall.
Right, it'd be cool if it was just the music, but it sounds like that's just the beginning of getting one of these suckers released.
Oh man, yeah, it's like step one, and it is the longest step one ever.
Well, you're making the step. I'm sure it's going to be great. Well, tell me about, I want to go into your whole life and your journey and everything. But before we move off of the actual album, do you want to highlight, a song or two that tell me the name of one of the songs. Let's go into a couple of the songs that are on there.
Cool. Yeah. So one of my favorite songs on it is called "I Love You Always," and it is a song that I wrote for my fiance Savannah. And yeah, it's just I wrote her a song when we first started dating to kind of like try and impress her, and like it's a good song. But then I was thinking about it. We've been together for like a little over 3 years. We're getting married in June, and I was like, I feel like I should write like a new song for her, because it's our relationship has changed, from when we first started dating to now we're getting married. So I wrote her a new song, and I loved it so much that I put it on the record. It's called "I Love You Always."
I love you always. All right. Well,
Yeah.
and congrats on the engagement and upcoming wedding. Yesterday was my wife and I our 3-year anniversary. So good time.
Oh, congrats, man. Very
Thanks.
cool.
Yeah. So
we're excited.
We might get something out of listening to that song then.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I hope so.
That's awesome. That's so great. All right. Well, give me another deep dive. Wait, throw out another song on the album that you like, and tell me the inspiration for that.
So there's a one song on there that I've been playing at all my shows that I feel like strikes a chord with everyone that's there. It's called "By the Way," and I wrote it about losing my dad and everything that kind of goes along with that, and all the regrets and feelings. So it's definitely like, it's a heavy topic, a heavy song, but it's something that I felt that I really needed to put on the record, because I'm stepping out into the world as my own man, my own artist. But I have to acknowledge the elephant in the room, that like I just lost my dad and the world lost John Prine, and I kind of like tackle that in that song. So that one's a really, really important one to me. It's called "By the Way."
By the way, yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly when you said the world lost John Prine, but again, you lost him at, on a family level, on a personal level.
Yeah.
We all these legendary music icons. It's easy to sort of be like, think about how much they touched all the world, but there's that whole personal side. And you know what? We actually a couple months ago, maybe a year ago now, I spoke with AJ Croce, Jim Croce's
Oh
son.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's similar to sort of this interview with you, but also the complete opposite, because he never met his dad. You got to spend years and years and years with your father, but AJ, I guess he was the little boy that he wrote "Time in a Bottle" about when he was unborn, still, in the womb. But he
Right.
never actually got to grow up with his dad. But as far as for in your case, you spent many years with him. So tell me about your dad, the man. We all know the music, but tell me about what it was like growing up, with him as just pure dad.
It was definitely interesting. I remember it like being a kid and my mom would be like, "Oh, like, do you want to go see dad tonight?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like, where are we going?" And like, she'd, same, like, name some venue that we'd be going to. And I remember like sitting backstage and like watching him, and everyone's like partying, having a good time at the concerts. And in my mind, I just thought that's like what adults did. Like, I just thought that, like, when you got older, you picked an instrument and played it for people on stages. Like, I thought that was like as normal as like cooking breakfast. You know what I mean? So whenever I got to like my teenage years and I figured out, I'm like, okay, so this is actually something like much different. um, but yeah, I mean, it was definitely really interesting. He was, the reality of it is that when you have a parent that is a professional musician, they can't be home all the time. So, I know that I'm not alone in that experience. I know that every other family that has a musician in it, experienced that. So he was definitely gone a lot, especially when I was younger. But when I got a little older, I actually ended up going on the road with him, which was really fun. I got to play some encores with him, and I'd sell merch and stuff like that, and kind of get to see what his world was like on a day-to-day basis. So, but yeah, I guess, like, other than that, though, he was still just like any dad. He'd make me pancakes in the morning, and we'd watch football together, and he'd take me to like lacrosse practice and stuff like that, and he'd go to my games. So, you know,
I love it. I love it. So wait, real quick,
yeah.
when were you actually born?
I was born October 4th, 1995, in Nashville, Tennessee, and I still live here.
In Nashville. Okay, so then you're growing up, eating the pancakes, watching football. What was Dad's team?
Tennessee Titans, man.
Of course, yeah, Nashville. Of
Yeah,
course, yeah, of course.
yeah. Well, he's from Maywood, Illinois, so he just like outside of Chicago. So he's always been a Bears fan as well. But I don't think we'd ever let him get too far into the Bear fandom in our house, because we're all Titans fans for sure. So
Cool. Well then, all right. So
yeah.
then you're listening, like you were saying, your mom would be like, let's go see dad. So you were, nominally aware that, he was a singer, but when did you actually start? Like, what age do you think you really started really doing a deep dive, pulling out his albums, pulling out his CDs and stuff, and starting to truly appreciate the genius of an artist that he was? Like, was that like as a teenager, or when was it for you?
I would definitely say like early mid-teens for sure, just because I mean, like, I've loved my dad's music even since I was a kid. Like, I remember telling him when I was like 5 or 6, I was like, I love Fish and Whistle, and he was like, all right, cool, I'll play it for you every night, like whenever you're at the show. So but then, yeah, I think, like, growing up, I went through all my like different phases of like classic rock and like metal, and like listen to like System of a Down, and like listen to like a bunch of Outcasts, and like anything other than what my dad did, because when you're growing up, like, everything else in the world is cooler than your parents. So
System of a
like,
Down, man.
yeah,
That's some
man, yeah,
heavy
oh yeah,
stuff. I remember that as
oh
well.
dude, yeah, I love System of a Down, I still do. But
The
I
toxicity of our
yeah,
city.
I'm a city. That's actually funny. That was like the song I listened to every single day on the way to cut vocals for my record. And my record doesn't sound like System of a Down, so don't make any connections with that. But yeah,
That
I still
drums,
definitely
man,
listen
the
to that
drums when it's
record.
like do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, it's so sick. Like,
So
you
sick.
have to listen to it more than once.
Yeah.
But I forgot where I was now.
You were talking about when you started taking it really serious and what you were listening to.
Yes. Okay, cool. Yeah. So, like, I do remember, like, I've always loved my dad's music and stuff, but obviously I listened to a bunch of other stuff. and trying to like emulate it when I was like learning to play the guitar. And then eventually I picked up the acoustic when I was like probably like 15, 16, and I just never put it back down. So as soon as I started like loving that sound from the acoustic is when I kind of started trying to listen to like other stuff and like, anything that's like not distorted guitar and like loud drums and stuff like that. And like I remember I listened to some like Jeff Buckley and like I was like super moved from it. And then like I think I was like 17 maybe, and my mom was like, hey, you should listen to this record. It's called Southeastern by this dude named Jason Isbell. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, what kind of music is it? And she's like, it's like Americana stuff, like the stuff your dad makes. I was like, oh, cool. Like, I'll check it out. I remember listening to it and I was just like, holy shit. And then like, it's like, that was like the record I feel like that in like 2013 when like lyricism and stuff like that, like really, really clicked for me. And then ever since that, listening to my dad's music, I was just like, oh my God, like this dude is so good. Like this is crazy. And I think the cool thing about it too, man, is that every like couple years when I kind of entered in new phases of my life, different records from my dad's discography like really speak for me or like speak to me in kind of different phases of my life. Like I went through like a couple like of his earlier records, like Missing Years and like German Afternoons for a while. And then like, the Tree of Forgiveness obviously has been really, really big for me the last couple of years, just because I feel like it's like the most kind of like recent way that I can tap in with my father since he passed. So yeah, I would say like as in a short answer, it was definitely kind of like my mid-teens sort of range when everything kind of started clicking.
Wow. I love when you were saying you're like listening, you're like, oh my gosh, this dude is amazing. And that dude is your father.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically the epiphany that all of us around the world have had too. Like, oh my God, this dude is amazing. But you're the only one that dude is dad. This dad is amazing.
No doubt.
Remind us really quick. So you said, I mean, talking about your father's, career, gosh, I feel like I'm almost Godfather 2ing you, where we're going. You're paralleling him at the same age that he was at the time he became famous. Is parallel storylines.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you can remind our listeners, he was around the Chicago, like that whole folk scene around Chicago. And what is it true that like Roger Ebert of all people and Chris Christopherson like helped discover him?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Like, I mean, I might not have like my facts super correct here, but I'm pretty sure Roger Ebert was like the first like big, very positive like review that he got, and then Chris Christopherson ran into Steve Goodman, and Steve Goodman was like, "Hey, man, like if you enjoyed my song, like you should go see my buddy John. Like you really should go check him out." And then pretty sure the story is like it was like really late at night. My dad was played a couple of songs. Chris Christopherson walks in and it was already at like 1 a.m. And he was like, here, play me like 6 songs or whatever. And my dad played them. And then Chris was like, play them again. I want to hear all of those one more time. And he made him play them all over again. And then like, the rest is history from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Christopherson's amazing. But yeah, I mean, do you think Ebert, I'm just spitballing, but do you think Ebert as a film critic just appreciated your dad, like the visual storytelling in your dad's stuff, you think? Like he almost cinematic, he could see it like a movie maybe?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the one really interesting thing about my dad's music is that you don't have to be like a super creative person for his music to like take you on a journey. Like you don't have to have an imagination that easily runs wild for his music to like paint pictures in your mind and to like take you somewhere else, And I really think that's one of the most significant things about my father's talent.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and writing, yeah, like the ability to paint those pictures for I mean, like you said, and the everyman can appreciate it as much as the most creative person can get stuff out of the song. And also sort of based on life experience too. So I know he served in the army in West Germany, and then then we probably get stuff like Sam Stone about drug addicted vet and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Based on that, to remind our listeners of when you first heard Sam Stone, and I'd love to do a deep dive with you on that song, just in terms of hear your thoughts on why you think it's so genius.
Yeah, I don't know, honestly, when the first time I heard it. I mean, I think, like, obviously the first time I heard it, I had no idea what it was about because I was like a child, and like, the harrowing like story of like a drug addicted vet didn't really like land for me when I was like 7 because like, you don't, you're not exposed, or at
Yeah.
least most people aren't exposed to that kind of stuff at that age. But I do remember, like, I like the same kind of age range when I was kind of like mid-teens and stuff. And I don't know what it was. Like, I just feel like when you're a kid and you're listening to music, like you can still enjoy it, but it's for different reasons. It's just kind of like the way it makes you feel, which I think is a really special thing. But I think, once you get a little older and you start, listening to the words and the way they're saying them and why and the story it paints, then it can hit you on a completely different emotional level. And I think when I learned like what that song was about and like really listened to it again, I mean, yeah, like I think it hit me the same way it hit everyone else in the world, like a sack of bricks. Like it's a really heavy song, but it's beautiful too. So
Thanks for taking me into Sam Stone. Tell me about Angel from Montgomery. Just talk about why you think that one is so powerful.
um well, I think that one specifically, it's a great example for how easily my father could put himself in other people's shoes. And I think that is a pretty consistent trend throughout all of his songwriting and all of his music, that he's able to show empathy by putting himself in other people's shoes and show like a common understanding just in the human experience. So I think that, if everyone could agree that my father could do that in his songs, I think that would probably be the prime example out of all of his songs to be able to have an example of that.
If you had to distill it to one song, you would say "Angel from Montgomery" is what your dad. If aliens came down from the and were like, "All right, we need one John Prine song," that would probably be the one that explains what he does.
Maybe, I don't know. I would probably have a different answer for that for the aliens. I'm sure he would too,
You tell me. Well, then
but
what is it for you? Then? You're right. You're right because "Angel from Montgomery" is like is the famous one, but like what do you think yours is? There like a hidden gem that you think is his best stuff?
I mean, I've always loved like his like storytelling ones, like Lake Murray and like Jesus the Missing Years and stuff like that. Like I think that that stuff is much more like, it's just much more like him. Like he was just like even when you talk to him, he'd be like a storyteller, like even if it was just like a casual conversation. So like that those like two songs I would have to put up as contenders for sure for our alien friends. But um I'm trying to think. Knocking on Your Screen Door is like also one I would totally show just like any biological being, just to be like, this is what we have, this is what we make.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I mean, "Hello" in there and "Illegal Smile" and
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I could literally just rifle through all of them, and it'd all be good choices.
yeah, but then we'd be here all day, and I'm sure, and you're a
Yeah,
busy guy. But
yeah.
did you see what the legendary Bob Dylan said about your father? I think he said Prine's stuff is pure Proustian existentialism, Midwestern mind trips to the nth degree. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I've heard that.
that's the highest praise from the like everyone holds up as the poet of 20th century music. But I
Right.
mean, I guess just related to that sort of topic. I mean, talk about how your father was respected by the greatest songwriters of all time, the Dylans of the world. What he was held in high regard by them, and that's the ultimate compliment.
Yeah. I think it's been really cool to see, like, especially this like kind of new generation of artists and songwriters come through, and it like always seems like every like year or two we'll have like the new one will come over for dinner, you know what I mean, and like hang out, like um we have a lot of really good friends, especially in like the Americana world. And my dad definitely like really, really, really appreciated it whenever he would have like a young artist come and like meet him and be like, you mean so much to me. You're like one of the reasons why I started writing music. And it just that made him really, really happy to know that. Yeah.
Now, and I think he did he receive the Grammy Life Achievement Award? Was it right before he passed? Didn't he?
Yes.
It's like one of his final public appearances was receiving
Yeah,
that.
it was. Yeah.
How just how fitting and or grateful are you on his behalf that he got to experience something like that before he passed?
I'm very, very grateful that he got to experience that, because I can't think of anyone else that deserves it more than him. Especially like for a lifetime achievement award in songwriting and being an artist. I mean, that's the criteria right there, is him.
Yeah, yeah. And again, we were all shattered when we heard the news of his passing. And now I guess it's up to you to carry the torch on. Do you find do you find when you're writing your stuff and putting out this first album, I mean, I don't want to get too overly spiritual or anything, but do you feel that he's sort of looking down on you proverbially, and do you feel his presence as you do your work?
I really do. I mean, I think any songwriter will tell you that the ability to write a song is a very, very special thing that's larger than the songwriter themselves. And I think being able to tap into that creative space is to tap into the same thing that many, many people have done before us. And I do recognize that my father was, widely regarded, and I agree, as like one of the best, if not the best, to do it. So I think it's one way that I can kind of keep close to him. And there are definitely some times when I'm writing that, like, I know it may sound kind of odd, but I really mean it, where I feel like it's almost kind of like him kind of like helping me along with like certain lines or like a certain phrase that I can't think about. And like, I'll just kind of like feel like a nudge from him, So
Sort of guiding your pen along the page a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, with that being said, it's like, whenever you hear my record, like, it's not gonna sound like John Prine music. Like, I don't necessarily make like the songs that he made, but I think that you'll be able to kind of pick up that we may be related, just in terms of the way that in terms of the way that we like explain stuff, and word choice and stuff like that. But yeah, it's definitely not gonna be like a neighbor genre to his stuff.
Sure. And you know what, man? I mean, do not feel ever as you do embark on this whole journey, never feel like, compared or the pressure of, I got to do it. No, like, just feel it naturally and go with the vibe that you want to go with. Like, be your own artist, man. And we're all rooting for you. And so you're saying it sounds like, so it's not like like in the folk Americana sort of genre like your dad is. It's what how would you classify your album that's coming out?
It's probably closer to like the rock end of the spectrum of Americana. I would still say it's like Americana, because I do have some like finger picking kind of storytelling stuff on there, but then I also have some like really loud, really fun songs on there. And like, I have like a kind of like a ballad one on there. There's a song that has some strings on it. It's really cool, and I'm super, super proud of it.
You can hear a little of a System of a Down influence.
Yeah. Hey man, if you listen closely.
Oh, that's great. All right. Well, I really, really appreciate you joining us and, being so open and just taking us in. We're all excited to pick up the album again. It comes out this fall, and what's it called again?
I'm not saying too much about it, because I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to. I'm still trying to get a lot of stuff put together. But yeah, the two songs that I mentioned are "I Love You Always" and "By the Way." So definitely keep your eye for those if you're coming to my shows.
Yes. And and don't wait till the fall for the album. You can see him live and in person here in DC at the City Winery on Tuesday, April 19th. So get your tickets now. Tommy Prine. Hey, thanks so much. It's just so great to get to chat with you, and all the best with the album, and we can't wait for the show.
Thanks, Jason. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me too. I really appreciate that. It's fun.
Definitely. All right. Well, good luck. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care, man.
Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.